I'm going to start this off. I promised to cover this great big giant miss I have in 2 cylinders, and I have 2 other cylinders that are, let's put it the terminology as fuzzy. And I put some light in here. Remember what I told you? I'm getting a little better at YouTube. Um, I'm not qualified for animal porn, trust me, or people porn. I would totally miss it. Okay, truck porn, I've barely got the concept. But now, one thing I told you is about this hole. You can easily take these lifters off one by one, and they're self-adjusting. You have no fears of adjustment clearances. They are what they are, unless you see wear on them. Okay, this one's a little concerning. It has a little bit of slop to it. Okay, and this is my fuzzy cylinder, but that's not the problem. The slop is nowhere. It's side to side. It just means the pivots are worn a little bit, and I have other lifters. Okay, the point I'm trying to make: shoot air down the hole. Okay, shoot air down your hole. Take your push rods out. Clean your push rods, soak them, and blow your push rods out with compressed air. Okay, but I already had this apart. I already had my Tootsies in there. I had gloves on this time. Okay, point I'm trying to make. Okay, you can even blow compressed air into, okay, gently. Now, I don't suggest using more than 10 pounds, so put a regulator. I have one regulated blow nozzle. And actually, from time to time, being the bonehead that I am, sometimes I forget to put that back on because I only have one regulator for it. These Chinese regulators that you're getting at Harbor Freight are terrible. Now, another clue to you, whether you have a lifter problem, you see I have oil. Everything's wet with oil. Okay? It's the one where you see there's no oil or something, that might be your problem. Okay? Now, I've deduced and I got a sigh of relief, okay, because I've determined that it's going up and down. Now, how did I do that? I removed my fan, I put a ratchet on the crankshaft, and I was moving that, and every lifter is fine. And I checked the other side when it was up the shop. Now, that guy wanted $2,500 to put a camshaft in his truck, and I was not absolutely convinced it was a camshaft because I proofed my engine before I put it in the truck, and I made sure everything was moving. And as I told you, right before the other engine failed, I had put new fuel lines on the truck just prior to the failure of that engine. So one of the things I did was I cleaned out my fuel rails, and that could have been the problem. I could have loosened dirt that went down inside an injector, because sometimes it's just better to buy new stuff. That's why it's better to get new stuff. Because I just got yelled at by my family, one of my family members, because I wanted to put my hands around his neck, squeeze till his little eyeballs pop out. Uh, oh, you're always replacing. Well, those are the things where you can, really vex yourself, okay? I don't necessarily treat my family members, sometimes that's why they call me Uncle Dutch, because I just tell them the truth, okay? You've got a prodigy of problems that you can make for yourself, like me, like tearing something back apart, because I almost knew better. I was going to get new fuel logs. I think I actually have a set of new fuel logs. Now, the fuel log is this plastic piece that the injectors go in. I'm going to cover that along with the part that I'm using on this O1. I'm also going to teach you the difference between the injectors on these trucks, okay? That's important. That's why it's important that you guys, I don't necessarily ask people to subscribe. I'm not a big toot and horn guy, okay? But if you want to pass this information along to other people, because a lot of these guys make these videos and they gloss over some of the parts, like, well, what is the injector that I should be using for my truck? Well, if you don't know, you don't know. And a lot of these guys are not illustrating the difference. The 2-hole injectors, they came out on the 4.3 or the 4.8 motors and the 4.3 motors up until about 90. What was it? 90. No, it wasn't 90. 2002, I think they used those 2-hole injectors. The 5.3s, they used a 4-hole injector. But some of the performance, they had an enhancement package in the 2-wheel drive trucks. They had the 4-hole injectors in the 2-wheel drives. Not all of them. There was a first run of those 2-wheel drives. I think a lot of them were just built to be like work trucks, like fleet trucks. So why they would have had 2-hole injectors, either that or they had a production run and somebody decided, okay, we're going to make a change. I don't know where that came in, okay? And I'm going to reach out to Tony DeFeo because I think he's watching. He should watch my old videos. He's going about the Dollar General oven cleaner to clean your greasy parts, you know, and stuff like that. And I mean, I've covered all that stuff. And then he was talking about like this truck in the box, the 90s and the 70s. Okay, about keeping a uniform, universal platform. And he's talking about, oh, the Corvair. Well, GM was not the first guy on that idea. Uncle Adolf Hitler, I hate to admit it, Adolf Hitler, yes, that guy, he invented the people's car. You had a two-door, you had a four-door sedan, you had a pickup model, and then you actually had a utility model of that with the convertible model of that. They actually had, and then they had, I think two of them were just, I forget what they call them, those, the military used them. They were four-door convertibles, top-downs and stuff. But the universal platform, Tony, that's what we're trying to tell Elon Musk, okay? As far as transportation and in hot and cold environments, and an electric car is garbage, okay? One or the other is going to get it. You run it in tepid weather, they're fine. They're just not made to be a runner. They're not made to be your commuter vehicle. Now, if it's a weekend or you got a chore or something and you just want to run over and pick up some pipe fittings at Lowe's, or you want to go grocery shopping, like I said, I would invest in one if I could afford it. I don't know what they would. But I mean, if you made a simple freaking thing that you could plug into your line, like my light there, just plug that into the house current, and I can go down the store, I can get milk, I don't have to start my car up. And like I said, one with a pop top. You got something like a Jeep with that space in the back, or something with a pop top, like a hard top, one that ain't gonna decay and go to hell. Even like a pickup truck with a pop top. You know what, Elon Musk, he's not listening to us guys. But I think maybe that's why Tony goes through the redundancy of maybe I'm not saying he's watching me and copying me. I'm just saying wherever Tony's been before, except for some of the Mopar stuff, he is pretty much a genius on that. But as I said, I've mentioned the guy before because he has improved with his videos and his conveyance, just like me. Sometimes I make notes. Right now, we're a country where we've got the biggest bunch of thieves, perverts, child molesters, and they're standing right in the shadow of that great man Abraham Lincoln statue. It's pretty disgusting what's going on in this country. It's just like Trump doesn't understand how bad us veterans and senior citizens are hurting, especially those of us that support our families, okay? That's why I said I never called myself a derelict father. I pay attention. I do things for my kids. And that's why when my kid opened his mouth about, well, you're always replacing effing parts. This is where you're going with it, okay? You talk to the guy that knows about doing things and how to do them, okay? Not somebody that might know something. I actually know what I am doing, okay? There's a difference. And there's a lot of guys on the internet, and there's a lot of guys here personally that have told me that. You don't know about what you're doing. You know what you're doing, and I trust they trust me. The reason why they trust me, how could I say, is because 95% of the things that I have done have worked for them. It's not always, when you take something apart, something else can easily break, and then my family screams. And a lot of my family is, if you're working with your family members or even friends, they might be totally inept. They have no idea. They just think you replace a part and you're done. And that has never been, I very few jobs. I mean, outside of spark plugs, but I mean, the one time I went to change my own spark plugs and I tore the wire tore, the metal, the contact end tore off of it. So there I am buying wires, okay? It happens. Shit happens. You're going to get a bill. And that's why I wasn't going to let this guy up there just put a cam and lifters in it. I checked that motor before it went up there, okay? My problem, I believe, is my fuel injectors. Because if not, it's in the fuel system itself, okay? You could also have another problem that nobody mentions to you, and that's your fuel pump. Okay, that's when it runs. That's why when I took my friend's truck, when I took Tony D'Onofrio's truck over to, when we went over to Lowe's with it and that, because I already told him, I says, you might go through all that and just find out, it's the fuel pump. Oh my God, don't tell me that. And I said, well, you know what? They're going to have the tank down anyway. I says, maybe you want to put a new one in, keep the old one if it's still working. And when they do the fuel lines, Well, how much is that going to cost? I said, well, I'll get you the pump. I said, the $100, $200, somewhere in there. But I said, if you're going to drop another $1,000 in a fucking truck, Jesus, it's trying to get people to come to their senses. And that's where you got to learn, like I said, with your budgetary, when you're going to tear something down and park it, and you know there's other parts that are related that could be bad, maybe you want to soul search, like maybe defer the project if it's still running. But a lot of times it's far too late. It's already stopped running, and then you tear something apart and you realize I'm in for a bill here, or I'm in over my head and it's got to get towed to a professional shop, which is how I got my tail in a trap, okay? Computers are not me for these trucks, and I'm starting to learn about the technology. I've got a spy that used to work up at Tonawanda, and he's thinking about maybe he can get me some software, some stuff that's been, I guess it was allocated maybe to go to a dealer, and maybe it's gonna find the garbage can. It's gonna find me before it's gonna get reported that it didn't find me, that it found the garbage can. So I might have an advantage. It's just that right now they're very touch and go about their employees. They're searching people going in and out, and to get, I guess, the piece, whatever he's gonna give me, I don't know what it is. Okay, I was hoping maybe it was just like a thumb drive deal, because I heard dealers, when they flash these computers, they just use a goddamn thumb drive, and then they somehow through their laptop or whatever, they can change and dictate the cycles inside the sensors and stuff. So I'm hoping something like that happens. But okay, I told you, I went with my ratchet, I turned the motor over. You can clearly see that the lifters are working, they're bringing up oil. So I've deduced that my problem is my big bullet that I shot through my foot was when my first senses told me I should have bought a set of injectors. I should have looked, and I should have priced, and I just should have bit the bullet. So now I'm doing a job twice, and I might be buying valve cover gaskets, because this valve cover gaskets I got with these with the gasket set are, I mean, they're going to work, but they keep coming out of the valve cover. They're just not what I they're not like a Felpro gasket. That's what I had to say, and I'm going to ask everybody, if you guys want to get me a sponsor or sponsor me and take me very seriously, I'm going to show you how they manipulate weather and weather systems right here in my backyard. I'm going to show you some of the chemicals and the characteristics of those chemicals that they use, and how you can turn, if you go up above a weather cell, or you put that stuff in the air when you've got a weather cell coming and it contacts, I'm going to tell you right now, I can duplicate it. I know what it is. I'm a pilot. Remember I told you that? Military. And remember what I told you? I had connections. The DOD, we have offices next to GOD. Well, I had a talk with one of the GOD office guys over there. Okay? It's real. It's real. And I can tell you some of the chemical characteristics. I'm just hoping my encryptioning worked enough that they normally don't share that type of thing, but I think Trump's going to let it out anyway. But I will show you exactly what they're using, and if somebody wants to sponsor me and get me some money, so I got to have some canisters here, and I've got to have basically a miniature jet engine, and I'm going to show you how the thrust of that jet engine throws that stuff out and condenses it. I mean, I can make it work just on a workbench, but I would like to show somebody how, when it goes through a fuel jet engine with a little bit more souped up fuel, how that condensation, what it does, because it'll scare you. So heed my message that, yeah, I am the real rocket scientist, and I will prove that to you, okay? I have no reason to lie to you, and if I do an experiment over there, and if I take your money or you bring me the stuff that I need, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, that I'm not full of shit. And I'm going to tell you, you drop that stuff in a weather cell, you're making a bomb. And that's exactly what's going on in this world right now. Somebody they're learning to use that weather as a weapon. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Thank you.